Hey guys, more bear hunting questions keep coming in, so I'm going to keep answering them the best I can. In some cases, something that's been covered a lot. In other cases, I get so much correspondence, so many emails, texts, even Facebook messages of people that are asking questions. I just can't personally respond to them all, and I apologize for that, but the reality is I just don't have the time to respond to everything. But a lot of it has been covered. There's over 500 videos on this channel, and there is a whole lot of videos specifically relating to problem solving and the situations that bear hunters run into and correct baiting strategy and things like that. So be sure to watch those videos first of all. And once again, I apologize if I can't answer your questions personally. It's probably something that's been gone over multiple times before. But I also do have some good questions that keep coming in that are unique or maybe put a little different spin on something. And so we're going to dive right into those. And quite a bit lately I've been getting questions about the GPS information. Several states are GPS collaring bears and learning more and more, and really some surprising things that we would have never guessed about black bear, especially their movements, seasonal movements and so forth. So that's what these first couple questions are about. How do the GPS track the bears, daily, hourly, or what intervals? So my answer to that is I can't really tell you exactly, but I can show you that as these bears move, the GPS collars that they're wearing are sending pinpoint signals to the computers of the biologists exactly where these bears are at any specific point in time. And as I've gone through and looked at them, I can see that there's times when it sends a ping, so to speak, and then it sends another one 10 minutes later, or it might only send one every 2 to 3 hours, and the bear has traveled quite a ways, or it's maybe in a den or something like that, and it's not sending them as often. So when I get a chance, I'm going to check with the DNR biologist that handles this and see if I can learn more about exactly how this works. But in the meantime, I'm showing you some video here about these bears' movements, and you can see that there's GPS pings that come off of them at what seem to be random times. But it's often enough that we can really understand their movements and where they are. What are some surprising things you have learned by GPS tracking bears, maybe some extreme cases or etc.? Okay, so the most surprising things that I've learned is how much bears travel and how far they travel. I don't think any of us really thought that bears would travel this far until they started putting GPS collars on them. I mean, we had extreme cases where you had a bear that was clear down in Missouri that came from another state somewhere. When they were just ear tagging these bears, there's a bear that was tagged up in the UP that ended up being killed in southwest Wisconsin and so forth. So we thought those were just extreme rare cases. Well, it turns out they're not that rare as we originally thought. And a lot of these bears are traveling long distances seasonally, and they tend to settle in areas where their home ranges are larger than we really thought, because they make so many periodic moves outside of an area where they spend the majority of their time. Here's some extreme cases, and I've mentioned this one before. They had a sow bear in the study area in the Chippewa National Forest, kind of in north central Minnesota, north of Grand Rapids, and she just took off and went clear up into Canada and ended up denning up by Atikokan, Ontario. And in the spring, she came out of the den with cubs and came back, and that was 120 miles straight line as the crow flies. And she got back in a couple of months, and she had 2 cubs with her, and these little bitty cubs, I mean, you could fit both of them in a 5-gallon bucket, and they came all the way back across all that terrain and rivers and lakes and marshes, and I can just imagine how many thousands of downed trees they had to scramble over. It's just incredible. We've also seen situations where bears traveled 30 to 40 miles to where they den for the year and then come back. So there definitely are some extreme cases, but I really think that the whole concept of how much bears travel is an extreme thing that we never really realize. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of a study that was done here in Minnesota. And I just highlighted a few sentences here because it helps us understand. A lot of people, the question that you're asking is, of course, is why are they doing this? Why do they just take off like this? And it's typically food. Some of them are leaving to go to different areas to den, but it's generally high quality food sources that's attracting these bears. And of course, the question that we're going to ask is, how do they know where they are? How does a bear that goes 50 miles into a blueberry patch, how does he know where that blueberry patch is? And they've tried to study and maybe come up with some theories on this. I kind of have my own theories that are mixed in and with the study theories and so forth. But I just want to read this a little bit so you kind of get a feel for this study that was done and completed in 2014, and it is a report that was filed by the biologists at the DNR. And they state that the caloric benefit, the calories taken in of this behavior can be enormous, as prime feeding sites can provide enough calorie-dense food for growing bears to gain mass at their physiological maximum. So the important thing to remember is that a bear's life is a balance of how much energy they're going to expend to get calories in. They have to get more than they put out, or they go backwards, and you go backwards often enough, long enough, you die. However, many key foods, such as nuts and berries, fluctuate dramatically in abundance from year to year, so bears must continually adjust seasonal travels to find the best food sources in the surrounding landscape. Their ability to locate suitable destinations must offset the energetic costs and the risks of searching beyond their normal home range boundaries. In north central Minnesota, 40% of bears were observed to make late summer migrations to food sources up to 165 kilometers from their typical summer home range. Additionally, 20% of males and 4% of females migrated to dens. So what this is saying is 40% of bears are traveling up to 100 miles to food sources. And so my theory on how do they know where these food sources are. So in this video that I'm showing you here of all these GPS points where a bear left the area where he spent his spring and summer and traveled, in this case it was about 80 miles, to an area that had high quality oak trees, and it had bur oaks, which is a species of white oak which are favored by the bears. I can give you more information about oak trees, but there's a video that I did about the difference between red oaks and white oaks and why bears prefer white oaks because of the less tannin in them. You'll go back and watch that video on this channel. You'll learn a whole lot about the acorns and the bear's relationship with acorns. So in the end of August, this bear just took off, and this is very common. They're saying 40% of these bears are doing this. And he ends up where these high quality acorns are, and then about 2 months later he just goes back. How do these bears know where these acorns are? I mean, did he go there as a cub? Probably. That's the main theory. But how did it get started? At what point was it this cub's mother that did this? And was that sow a cub of another one? They've been doing this for generations. We have no idea how long they've been doing it. And it's not just individual family groups. There's seemingly unrelated bears that go to the same spots. We know that they can smell really well. We also know that bears are somewhat social animals, so if one bear is going someplace, it's not impossible that other bears just follow them, especially at times. I know that bears can find where other bears are feeding, and that's one of the reasons they're good at finding your baits, is because they smell each other's scat. And one bear smells a pile of poop and he goes, wow, this guy's eating a lot better than I am. He decides to go find out where he's eating. So There's a lot more to learn on this, but we're learning more and more all the time, and it's really pretty exciting. And it's really great for a guy like me who's just fascinated by bears and by what they do and why they do it. Have you ever had your bears aged by sending in a tooth? Some states ask for a premolar to be sent in. If so, what is the average age and the oldest that you have seen? So, yes, I've had many, many bears aged by sending in a tooth, both in the United States and in Canada. I've known bears that are over 20 years old. As a guide, I have to send in the teeth of everybody that kills a bear in my camp. I just normally hardly ever hear. The guys normally just don't get back to me and tell me how old their bear was. The vast majority of bears that are shot in Minnesota are a year and a half old. Lots of 2.5-year-old ones. That's kind of unfortunate, but a lot of people are first-time bear hunters, or they just want to get a bear and get the bear meat in the freezer and a rug on the wall, and they're perfectly happy to shoot a young bear early in the hunt, and that's what they typically do. So there's a lot of young bears that are being shot. I think the oldest one that I've ever shot came back at 18 and a half. I can think of an 11 and a half and a 10 and a half. But some of the biggest bears I shot, the 500-pound bear that I shot came back at 9, and the 400-pound bear that was a Boone and Crockett came back at 7 and a half. So it can vary quite a bit. But hope that answers your questions. It's pretty interesting. Would you be better off to set back farther when hunting over bait with a rifle? It's a really good question, and I guess the short answer, the easy, simple answer is yes. You'd be better off to be set back with a rifle. The complex part of the answer is it's not that easy in most cases, because typically you're hunting in really thick cover. If your bait is where it should be, it typically has thick cover around it so the bears feel comfortable coming to the bait during the daylight and during legal shooting hours. And that means if you wanted to get back, say, 60 or 80 yards to shoot them with a rifle, it's really hard to find a shooting lane that will give you the opportunity to do that without cutting a ton of trees down. So yes, if you can find that situation and the bait's in the right location, then more power to you. I'd say go for it. I hunt with a bow, so I like to be 15 to 18 yards away, and as a guide, that's the way I set up all of my stands, because I never know if I'm going to put a bow hunter in there or a firearms hunter in there. So I set them up for a bow hunter, and then the firearms hunters have close shots. There could be some real advantages to setting back a ways with scent, of course, and also the fact that a lot of bears like to get downwind of a bait before they approach the bait, and you could potentially move your stand back enough so that even when he comes downwind of the bait, he's between you and the bait, and you might get a shot that way. So the answer to that basically is, yeah, if you can find a situation, I say go for it, but it's pretty difficult to find. So I did a video a while back called Do Not Manipulate Bears, and it was very well received. I got a ton of positive comments on it. I think it really helped a lot of people to understand the importance of giving bears what they want and not trying to push them into doing things that they don't want. This video was on a Minnesota Bear Hunters Facebook page. Got some negative feedback from people that didn't really understand the concept of what manipulating bears is. I thought I explained it well enough in the video, but maybe I didn't. So I had to go back on there and just sort of reiterate the concept that I'm trying to get across here of what manipulating bears is. So I'm just going to read to you the comment that I put on there to help understand the difference between manipulating bears and just giving bears what they want. And some of what I got was there's a couple people that said, well, the very act of baiting bears is manipulating bears. Well, that shows that they don't really understand what manipulating bears means. And so here is my one paragraph response to help people understand exactly what I mean by manipulating bears, in case it didn't come through clearly enough in that video. Successful bear baiting is always about giving bears what they need and want in an environment where they feel safe and comfortable. And if you forget everything else about bear hunting, That sentence right there really sums up the difference between being a successful bear hunter and just throwing donuts in the woods, if you know what I mean. It's not manipulating bears, it's exactly the opposite. If you're trying to influence a bear to do something he does not want to do, or push him into a situation where he's uncomfortable or doesn't feel safe, then you're trying to manipulate him. And you will fail, because bears will not be manipulated. And if they don't feel safe, they aren't coming during legal shooting hours. This is the concept that I try to get across whenever people say, I got these nocturnal bears, I can't get them to come in during the daylight. This concept will really help you. You can get away with a lot of things when it comes to yearlings, but if you're going to kill a mature bear, you must play the game by their rules. When you hear people give advice like spook the bear off the bait at night so they'll come during the daylight, or put radios out, or put bait out only during the day and take the bait out with you, or cut back on bait so the bears have to come in early, and all of these forms of manipulation makes it very difficult to be successful in the long term if you try those tactics. To help everyone understand the difference between correctly baiting bears and manipulation is you're giving the bears what they want versus trying to push them into doing what you want. If a bear is nocturnal, there's a reason he's nocturnal. And it could be that he doesn't feel comfortable there. It could be, it's actually more often than not, it's your location that's causing bears to be nocturnal. More videos on this channel about that too. But that's a concept that really deserves to be looked at if you're going to be successful in the long term. Okay, last question today. At what age can a youth first bear hunt in Minnesota? So you touched a hot button there, and this is one of the biggest blunders by the DNR that we have right now. So a youth can start applying for preference points at 10 years old. But in most zones, it takes 3 up to 7 points to draw a tag now, and the average is about 5 years. Minnesota has a reduced price bear tag for youth, so they can actually buy a bear tag that costs an adult $40. They can buy it for $5. Here's the problem. By the time they draw a tag to hunt, they're no longer a youth. They can't use the tag. So the only place that you can use a youth bear tag is in the no quota zone, where you can just buy a tag over the counter. So it's really messed up right now with the number of tags that are available inverse to the number of people that are applying, which is going up every year. So fortunately, the Minnesota Bear Guides Association, which has done a lot of good for bear hunters, even that aren't guides or clients of guides, if you're a do-it-yourself bear hunter in Minnesota, the Minnesota Bear Guides Association is always fighting for you, and they've helped change rules within the DNR that have improved your bear hunting. And what they're fighting for right now is to get a change so that youth hunters can either start applying for tags earlier, or get a certain number of points to start out, or whatever. And they're working with the legislature and the DNR right now on doing that. Now, the real problem I see with the way it is right now, and hopefully the Bear Guides Association will get this changed, I think you're going to see some progress on this. They're working hard on it. In Zone 45, where I live here, if you start applying for points at age 10, a kid's not going to draw until he's 17. Well, by that time, it's, the season opens September 1st. He's in sports. He's interested in girls. Girls are interested in the boys. A lot of girl hunters too, of course. But what you've done is you've lost all that impressionable years in those early teens, where study after study have shown that if kids get involved in hunting between 10 and 14, they tend to become hunters for life. And we've lost that area, so this definitely needs to be changed. The DNR, if any DNR employees are watching this, get on board with getting this fixed so we can get those youth hunters out in the woods. So that's what I've got for today. If you have questions, put them in the comment section of this video. If you disagree with anything I say, certainly I'm interested in hearing your comments that way too. Give the video a like, I really appreciate it, and share it with your bear hunting buddies if you would. Thanks a lot for joining me. We'll see you on the next video.